Chapter 8 review. This is a study guide for your test tomorrow. Chapter 8 review. Alright, the first thing I want to go over is how I want you to watch this video. I want you to pause each slide before I explain it. I want you to work the problems on your own, and then you can check your answers by watching me work through them. Alright, now, in the first slide, we're dealing with ratios. So I'm using the chart that's given to me on this slide to write the following ratios in 3 ways. First of all, I'm going to do wins to losses. So I can write it as a fraction, 15/10. I can write it with a colon, or I can write it with the word 2, 15/10. Just make sure that you get the order right. Or I could do wins to games played. Well, they won 15 and they played a total of 25. So again, I can just write it in those same 3 ways. 15 to 25. 15 to 25. Now the third one says to give the losses to games played as a fraction in simplest form. So now I'm going to write that as a fraction, 10 to 25. I'm going to divide top and bottom by 5, and I get 2/5. 2/5. Okay? So that would be the fraction in simplest form. If it were to be a whole number and I said write it as a fraction in simplest form, just make sure that you put it over 1, just like in your homework from last night. Alright, now in 8.1 we also talked about how to determine which ratio is bigger or smaller. Okay, so write them as a fraction. And then you'll want to use your calculator to change them to a decimal, since it's not going to have a common denominator. So this reduced is going to be 3/5, and 8/20 reduced, actually this will work out, equals 2/5. So since they have a common denominator, 3/5 and 2/5, I don't need to worry about converting to a decimal. I can just compare them as they are, and 3/5 is clearly bigger than 2/5. So that's how I would determine which one's greater. Again, on your test tomorrow, if they don't have the same denominator when you reduce them, just change them to a decimal. So 3/5 as a decimal would be 0.6, and 2/5 as a decimal would be 0.4, and 0.6 is still bigger. Okay, that's all you need to know for 8.1. Now in 8.2, to find the unit rate, remember, you just divide top and bottom by whatever number is down here in your denominator. In this case, it's 3. So divide top and bottom by 3. And one of the most important parts of unit rate is that you have to have your label in your final answer. 6 feet per second. Okay, and that's how I want you to write it. For the second example, same thing. Whatever number's in your denominator, divide top and bottom. And you get 6 liters in 1 day. Alright, and that's how you find the unit rate. Now, to find average speed, you're going to use the formula A equals distance over time. So here we have distance, and here we have time, distance over time. But the first problem I have is that my time is not all in the same unit. So I need to convert that all down to the smallest unit, which is seconds. So I have 1,500 meters. Now over 4 minutes, there's 60 seconds in a minute, so multiply that by 60 and I get 240, plus 15, so I get 255 seconds. And then you'll want to divide that out. Now, if you did this right in your calculator, you should have ended up with a really large decimal. On the test tomorrow, I'll give you specific instructions about rounding, but most of the time I'll say to round to the nearest hundredth. So in that case, it would be 5.88 meters per second, and that would be your answer. Now, in 8.3, we're dealing with slope. If I give you this graph of a line and I'd say to find the slope, you're looking for the change in the rise and the change in the run. So you start with your point that's furthest to the left. Okay, so that's going to be this point right here. All right, and you're looking in the change in the rise. Well, you go from 6 down to 3. Now notice the way the line is slanting down to the right, so you know it's negative. Negative 3 over, and you go from 2 to 5 over 3. This, however, is not your final answer. Your final answer is going to be negative 1, because you do want to simplify. Now, say for example your slope was 7 over 5 though. You are going to leave it 7 over 5. Do not change it to 1 2/5. That is incorrect when you're dealing with slope. Okay? You want to leave it as an improper fraction if it does in fact happen that way. So just remember that for slope for your test tomorrow. Now, what if I gave you the coordinates negative 3 and 2 and 3 and 6, okay? And I said draw a graph of the line that passes through these points and then give me the slope. Well, remember, you want to use your x and y coordinates to plot the points, so negative 3 up 2, and then right 3 up 6. Draw your line. You know, because the line is slanting up and to the right, that it's a positive slope. Now you just need to figure out how much it rises by. It goes from 2 to 6, so that's 4. And it goes from negative 3 to positive 3, so that's 6. So it's rise over run, and then you reduce it to 2/3. And that's how you would do a slope problem. Now let's go back. All right, to solving proportions using equivalent ratios. Equivalent ratios, I'm looking for my missing link. So here, how do I get from 5 to 20? My missing link is 4. I can multiply by 4, or I can divide by 4. I can go both ways. So 7 times 4, x equals 28. Okay, again, what's my missing link between 8 and 24? It's going to be 3. I can multiply 8 by 3, or I can divide 24 by 3 to get to 8. So, what is 36 divided by 3? X equals 12. The missing link works both ways, whether I'm going from the smaller to the bigger ratio or the bigger to the smaller ratio. Now, if I'm using algebra to solve, I want to multiply by the reciprocal. So just remember the key word reciprocal. Multiply by 9 over 1, those cancel. Multiply this side by 9 over 1. Those reduce to 3/5. X equals 52 over 5. You'll want to convert this to a decimal, okay? Because we don't want a fraction over a fraction. 52 divided by 5 is 10.4. So x equals 10.4. Now again, over here on B, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Both sides, I can cross reduce to 3/4. And I get n equals 12 over 4. And then n equals 3. Now, last but not least, I'm going to solve using cross products. You want to, hold on one second. Okay, so now you want to circle your cross products and then write your new equation. So now you have 29s equals 11.6 times 5, and that is 58. Divide both sides by 29, and s equals 2. Now on B, it's the same process, and you'll notice that this might be similar to a problem that you have seen. We have decimals, but it doesn't change anything. Okay, we have 9.6 H equals, and when we multiply 24 times 0.4, we get 9.6. Multiply both sides by 9.6, and H equals 1. You will have a couple of word problems tomorrow that involve setting up a proportion, so make sure you review both your quiz, your previous lessons on the word problem examples, and you look back into those sections to review those word problems. If you know all of this, then you should be fine for your test tomorrow.